So this is my full review on the Sony Bravia X80J. It's the entry-level Sony Bravia TV. Let's take a closer look. Don't forget to hit the red button to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up and click the notification bell to get my next video first. Just a quick note for disclosure, we have paid full retail value for this TV. We're not being asked to say anything good or bad about it, and links to the TV will be found in the description. So we have already completed the unboxing and setup video. I'll leave links in the description for you. Some of the main points that came out of that video, one was the legs, the fact that they're very well made, they're nice and solid, and also you don't need any screws to attach them to the TV, you literally just push them in, and there's dual positioning, which I'll come on to in a second. The build quality of the TV I think is questionable. It's a little bit plasticky, and in some areas it feels quite loose, that plastic. Another thing which I think is poor on a few of the Sony TVs this year is the cable management, again, is questionable. It is very, very minimal. Now, there are two TV stand positions. As you can see, this is the central stand, which I think looks fine, and if you have got a narrower unit, then it's ideal. It measures around 18 inches or 45 centimeters, so it will fit on the smallest of units. If you do want the wider stance, then this is around 37 inches or around 95 centimeters. I personally think it looks a lot better on the wider legs if you've got the correct unit for it. Obviously, you can also wall mount it with a 300 by 300 VESA mount. In terms of connections, absolutely everything is as you would expect. There is no HDMI 2.1, all of the HDMI ports are 2.0, and you do get audio return channel and enhanced audio return channel with HDMI port 3. Now, first of all, it's important when reviewing this TV to realise that this is not going to be for your high-end TV enthusiasts, the people that want the very fastest gaming at 4K at 120Hz, or someone that's a real cinema enthusiast wanting those inky blacks of the latest OLED TVs. But what this TV is going to be is someone that wants a really good picture and that does a pretty good job of everything, but probably going to be constrained by a budget that isn't in the thousands and thousands of pounds or dollars. This is an affordable TV that delivers on many fronts. It's got Dolby Vision, HDR and eARC. It's got a great operating system. Let's look at that first. Google TV has replaced Android TV across the whole range of Sony TVs in 2021, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I couldn't find really any negatives to having this at all. In fact, setup was very straightforward and easy, and it was more in line with many other operations where you're using your phone to set things up. So this was clean and very, very simple, and I thought the interface was actually an improvement over previous models. All of the settings that you'd have been familiar with if you've had a TV from Sony before are also along the bottom in a very familiar way. And again, you get that feature when you click into the settings, it will then go in and tell you what each individual change will do. And this again is very helpful for those that maybe are a little bit less experienced. The X80J performed as expected when it came to viewing angles. It wasn't the best, but by no means the worst. It still delivers quite a bright, crisp image, even when you are quite the way round. Now, I did find that in a brighter room, it didn't handle that quite as well because it was likely to pick up some reflections, which you tend to find on most TVs. Okay, now let's look at screen uniformity, or dirty screen effect. DSE, you might see it being abbreviated to. Now this is really important. It's something which I really advise everybody to check right at the very start when they buy a TV, because it is individual to the individual panel. Although there are some manufacturers, that's you Samsung, that do seem to have a bigger problem than others. Here on this screen from Sony, you can see that the majority of the screen is absolutely fine, no issues, but the extreme corners are getting that dirty screen effect, where it's just blackened slightly. So I'm going to keep an eye on it. If it was much worse than this, then I would take the panel back. But at this price point, for this type of screen, it's about what is realistic to expect. And so therefore, if you've got something which is a lot worse than this, well then, if I was you, I would change yours. Right, now let's look at arguably the most important thing about this TV, and that's the picture quality. And I do have to say, I'm not a great fan of the actual build quality of this TV. I'm not a great fan of some of the features that it's lacking, but in terms of the color accuracy and the general just beautiful picture, it's breathtaking. I'm absolutely blown away by it. I think it looks amazing. Now, I found right out of the box the standard picture setting was the most accurate. It really did a very good job, and for the majority of people you won't need to change anything on this at all. If you go to cinema, then it will probably look a little bit too warm and maybe a little bit too orange, and if you go to vivid, well, nobody goes to vivid, so don't even consider that. Now, as for some of the other changes, we did tweak the black level down slightly. And we also just changed the brightness up just a couple of points. And when we did this, we felt that we got a very much better, well-balanced image, where the black levels were as good as you could possibly hope for on this type of set. Now, don't get me wrong, they're certainly not the level of an OLED. You can definitely see a greyness to those blacks, but in general, it was pretty good. HDR footage in bright scenes was excellent and again far better than we expected, but unfortunately the counter to that was darker scenes performed a lot worse. Now, it wasn't terrible and you can adjust it a little bit. Here I'm in Dolby Vision dark mode, and if I tweak it to Dolby Vision bright mode, then you'll see it does get significantly better, but you're still losing an awful lot of the shadow detail, and that's just because it can't get bright enough. There were also some scenes when I was just watching standard HD channels that did a really poor job at delivering those blacks, and they almost appeared grey and slightly washed out. This TV really excels when it's dealing in brighter images. It does struggle on those really darker scenes like I showed you, but if you generally watch standard TV for sport and it's mainly brighter imagery that you're looking at, well then you're going to be absolutely blown away with the quality of it. Watching standard cable and satellite television again is an absolute joy. The colour accuracy I found to be absolutely stunning. It just looked brilliant right out of the box, and then after we made those few tweaks it looked even better. And I thought that this was on a par with some of my more expensive TVs like my OLED C1 LG for delivering this type of content. Don't get me wrong, it can't deliver when you're trying to achieve those really darker scenes. But what it does do brilliantly, this type of imagery, well, it does it almost as good. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't TVs that are better out there, because there are. And I'm going to be looking very shortly at the XJ90 or the X90J. That is the updated version of the X900H or the X890, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that one delivers. But that one is around £500 more expensive than this, the X80J, and that's quite a lot of money. That's a soundbar, that's a PlayStation. There is a big difference. So what I would say is, if you're looking for a great TV for everyday use and your budget is this type of range, well then you can't really go wrong with this. Providing you don't get too bad DSE effect, then you're going to be getting a good picture. What about gaming? Well, I think it's going to be a similar story. If you're playing a bright game with not many darker scenes, then it's going to look fantastic. We've already spoken about the deficiencies in the fact that it hasn't got HDMI 2.1 and it hasn't got things like variable refresh rate. Well, those things will probably not be important if you're just an occasional gamer. Playing something like Dirt 5 here, which is a bright, crisp, vivid game, and it handles the motion really well, I don't think that that is going to be any issue for anyone at all. Where it's going to struggle is, again, trying to achieve those darker scenes. Something which I'll show you in a second is a scene from Outriders, and I found that it just didn't particularly perform so well in that type of scenario. Don't get me wrong, it's still very playable, but there are better TVs out there. The input lag on this TV has been measured to around 11 milliseconds, which isn't too shabby, and it will still deliver 4K HDR at 60 Hz. So let's now look at that darker scene in Outriders. Now, anyone that's seen this type of scene on something like the Samsung QN90A, it completely blows you away when you look at it, whereas with this, it's definitely a lot more average. Don't get me wrong, it's very playable and you don't miss that much detail, but it's just not the same level as some of those more expensive TVs, and that's something which you really need to consider depending on what type of input and gaming you're going to be doing. But certainly I would say, if you're looking for a TV that is bright and colourful, delivering really good crisp imagery, and you're going to be watching everyday TV with occasional HDR content, occasional gaming, well then this isn't going to be a bad choice. Just before I summarize, guys, I'm going to be doing a review on the Samsung AU9000 next. Make sure you hit the red button and subscribe if that is of interest. It's a good comparison to this, the X80J. Right, in summary, guys, this TV is a great all-rounder, providing you don't test it too much. And what I mean by that is don't expect it to do great things in those darker scenes, and that's whether it's HDR content or even standard HD content. But if you're looking for a good all-rounder that delivers great cable, satellite, and also 4K imagery, well then this might be the one for you. If it's in your price point, it's definitely one worth considering, and I'll leave my links in the description for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. If it has been helpful, then please do consider hitting that thumbs up button and also subscribing for more of my content. Thanks again, guys.